Welcome to our deep dive, and today we're tackling proteins.
That was good.
Yeah, from what you shared with me, it sounds like you're really looking to understand proteins on, well, like a deeper level, right?
Yeah, like how they work and why they're so important and all that.
Yeah, exactly. So I've taken a look at some of the excerpts from Wikipedia that you sent, and I have to say, some of the stuff is already blowing my mind.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, for example, did you know that there's this enzyme, orotate decarboxylase, that can speed up a reaction that would normally take like 78 million years, and it does it in 18 milliseconds?
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's actually essential for life. It's
Yep.
a good example of the power of enzymes,
Which are proteins.
which are proteins. Yep.
So we're talking about enzymes and proteins and speeding things up, but maybe we should rewind a bit. Like, what are proteins even in the first place?
Right. Yeah. So the source mentions that they're built from amino acids,
Okay.
and you can think of proteins as nature's robots, basically. They carry out tons of different tasks in our bodies.
Oh,
And just like any complex machine, they have to be built from smaller components.
right.
So that's where those amino acids come in. They're like the building blocks. They link together, kind of like beads on a string.
Okay.
And they form these chains that are called polypeptides.
Okay, so we've got the beads, which are amino acids, and then we've got like the necklace, which is the protein, but way more complex. So how many different kinds of beads are we talking about here?
So there are 20 different types of amino acids.
Okay.
And each one has its own unique chemical properties.
Oh, okay.
And those properties actually determine how they interact with each other and how the protein folds into its final shape. It's pretty amazing.
Got it. So 20 different amino acids, it's like the protein alphabet.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so the source also mentioned something called a peptide bond. What's that all about?
Yeah, so that's the chemical bond that links the amino acids together. It's what forms the backbone of the protein.
Mm-hmm.
It's a special type of bond with some pretty interesting properties.
Okay.
One of them is something called resonance structures.
Resonance structures.
Yeah, and basically what that does is it makes the protein backbone a little bit rigid.
Okay.
So think of it like a chain that has some flexibility. It can move around, but it also has this inherent stiffness.
So the peptide bond is like, it's the thread that's holding the beads together.
Right.
And then this resonance thing adds some firmness.
Exactly.
Right.
And that rigidity is actually really important because it influences how the protein can, twist and turn and stuff.
So it's not just the sequence of amino acids, it's how they're connected.
Right.
And how flexible that connection is.
Right, exactly. And ultimately all that affects its shape and function.
It's like a very intricate puzzle.
Yeah, it is a puzzle. But the coolest part is how this linear chain of amino acids, it seems so simple.
Yeah.
It folds into this incredibly complex three-dimensional shape. It's kind of like origami.
Oh, okay.
Like you start with this flat piece of paper and you follow specific instructions and boom, you have this complex 3D object.
Wait, so you're saying that a protein, this chain of amino acids, somehow knows how to fold itself into a specific shape just based on what those amino acids are?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah.
That's wild.
It is. And scientists are still working on like fully understanding how it works, all the intricacies.
Oh, wow.
It's like a language where the amino acids, the sequence dictates the structure, but we're still trying to figure out all the grammar rules,
Right.
This is actually called the protein folding problem. That's one of the biggest challenges in biochemistry.
Okay, so protein folding, that's super cool. But why is the shape so important in the first place?
Well, shape is everything for proteins.
Okay.
It determines how they interact with other molecules. It's kind of like a key fitting into a specific lock.
Right.
And those interactions are what let proteins do all their different jobs in the cell.
So the source mentions these 4 levels of protein structure: primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary. Can we break those down?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So the primary structure is just the linear sequence of amino acids,
Okay.
like the order of the beads on the string.
Gotcha.
And then you've got the secondary structure. That's where the chain starts to fold into these local patterns, like these spirals called alpha helices,
Okay.
or these zigzag sheets called beta sheets.
So those are like the first folds of the origami?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
They give the protein some basic shape.
Okay, cool.
And then as the folding continues, you get to the tertiary structure. That's the overall 3D shape of the entire polypeptide chain. So that's where our origami crane really starts to take form with all the loops and bends and all. And finally, some proteins even have a quaternary structure. That means they're actually made up of multiple polypeptide chains all coming together to form one bigger functional unit.
So it's like multiple origami cranes coming together to make a bigger structure.
Exactly.
That's incredible. So we've
Yeah,
gone
yeah.
from beads on a string to these crazy 3D structures.
Yeah, it's amazing.
All thanks to this crazy protein folding process. But we're still talking billions of these things in a single human cell. So what are all these little protein robots actually doing?
They do pretty much everything. They're involved in pretty much every single process that keeps us alive and functioning.
Okay.
They act as enzymes.
Mhm.
They transport molecules all over the body.
Right.
They provide structural support.
Okay.
They play a huge role in cell signaling.
All right, that's a lot. Let's start with enzymes. So the source mentions that they're like the workhorses of the cell, speeding up those chemical reactions. How do they actually do that?
Well, enzymes are catalysts,
Okay.
and that means they increase the rate of a chemical reaction, but they
Got it.
don't actually get used up in the process.
Oh, okay.
And they do this by lowering the activation energy. So the energy needed for a reaction to
So
happen.
like they're providing a shortcut.
Yeah, exactly. And remember, orotate decarboxylase, that enzyme we talked about earlier,
Uh-huh.
without it, this crucial reaction for making one of the building blocks of DNA, it would take 78 million years.
Wow.
But with orotate decarboxylase,
Yeah.
it happens like that.
That's mind-boggling. So essential for life, these enzymes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so what about this transport role that you mentioned? How do proteins move things around?
Some proteins are like little specialized delivery trucks. They carry essential molecules like oxygen
Okay.
or nutrients to different parts of the body. A good example is hemoglobin. Okay.
It's a protein found in red blood cells,
Right.
and it binds to oxygen in the lungs and carries it to the rest of our tissues.
So it grabs the oxygen and hitches a ride
Pretty much, yeah.
on the red blood cell expressway
Exactly.
to deliver the cargo.
Yeah, and there are tons of other proteins doing this too, for all sorts of different molecules.
Okay, so we've got speedy enzymes, we've got transport proteins. What about structural support?
Yeah.
Because the source mentioned proteins are involved in that too.
Yeah. Think about your body without a skeleton.
Oh, no thanks.
Right. You'd be a shapeless blob.
Yeah.
So structural proteins like collagen and keratin are what give our cells and tissues their framework, their shape.
Uh-huh.
Collagen is actually a major component of our skin, our bones, tendons, ligaments.
Wow.
Keratin makes up our hair and nails.
It's amazing to think that this simple chain of amino acids can create such diverse structures.
It is amazing. Different properties. Collagen keeps us from being blobs, and keratin helps us grow hair and nails. That's wild.
It is. And we haven't even talked about cell signaling yet.
I was just going to ask about that.
Another crucial role for proteins.
How do they fit into that whole process?
Think of cell signaling like a communication network.
Okay.
So our cells need to constantly send and receive signals to coordinate their activities. Proteins play a vital role in that.
Okay.
Some proteins act as messengers,
Yeah.
like they carry signals between cells,
Got it.
while others act as receptors. So they receive those signals and then trigger a specific response in the cell.
So some proteins are like the postal service delivering messages.
Yeah.
And some are like the mailboxes
That's a great analogy.
waiting to get the messages. It's like a whole postal system, but like on a microscopic scale.
It is. And this network is essential for everything from regulating our metabolism to coordinating our immune response. It's incredible.
This is all so fascinating. We've gone from tiny building blocks to these complex 3D structures,
Yeah.
and each one with its own special shape and function. It makes you wonder how scientists even study these tiny machines.
Yeah, well, they've actually developed some remarkable techniques that let them see protein structure in incredible detail.
Wow.
Like down to the level of individual atoms.
Okay.
Two of the most powerful methods are X-ray crystallography and cryo-electron microscopy.
So it's like having a superpower microscope.
Exactly. They can visualize that intricate 3D structure, which is crucial for understanding how they work, how they interact.
This is all incredible, but clearly there's so much more to this story. So before the break, you mentioned these techniques that scientists use to actually see protein structure.
Right,
You
yeah.
were saying it's like having a superpower microscope.
Exactly. Things like X-ray crystallography and cryo-electron microscopy. They let scientists visualize the protein structure in amazing detail.
Wow. So like down to the atomic level?
Yeah, it's like having a 3D blueprint of these molecular machines.
That's incredible. But why is it so important to see those proteins in such detail? What can scientists actually learn from those blueprints?
Well, that structural information, that detail, it's super important for understanding how proteins actually work, how they interact with other molecules.
Okay.
For example, a lot of drugs work by binding to specific proteins,
Uh-huh.
and they either activate them or inhibit them. So knowing the exact shape of the protein, it lets scientists design drugs that fit perfectly, like a key in a lock.
Right.
And that can lead to more effective treatments with fewer side effects.
So it's like having a map of the protein's active site, the place where the drug needs to bind to do its thing.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. So the source also mentions this thing called the Protein Data Bank.
Oh yeah, the PDB.
What is that?
It's a fantastic resource. It's a public database.
Mhm.
So scientists can deposit all the structural data they've collected on, thousands of different proteins. Anyone can access this, anyone with internet.
Yeah.
And explore those 3D structures. It's pretty amazing.
It's like a virtual museum
It is.
of protein art.
Yeah.
But these sculptures are essential for understanding life itself. I could get lost in there looking at all the complexity of these tiny machines.
Oh, absolutely.
But before I do, I want to make sure I understand something. So we've talked about how proteins are made from these chains of amino acids and then they fold.
Yeah.
But the source also mentions something called post-translational modification.
Yes.
What does that mean?
So that's another layer of complexity in the world of proteins. So after a protein is made, it can actually go through further modifications. It's kind of like adding accessories,
Okay.
giving them specialized tools.
So like giving them upgrades or special abilities or something.
Exactly.
I like where this is going.
So these modifications can involve adding like small chemical groups to the protein, things like phosphate or sugar molecules.
Okay.
And these additions can change the protein's shape, its activity, even where it is in the cell.
So it's not just the amino acid sequence and how it folds. These modifications can like fine-tune the function.
Right, exactly. They make it even more specialized.
It's amazing how much control the cell has over these little machines.
It is. And it just highlights why studying proteins is so challenging, but also so rewarding.
Yeah.
There's always something new to discover.
Yeah. I'm starting to realize there's this whole universe of activity happening inside our cells that we barely even understand.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's mind-blowing. But we've been mainly talking about individual proteins,
Right.
each with its own unique shape and function. Do they ever work together?
Oh, absolutely, they do. In
Yeah.
fact, they rarely work alone. They're constantly interacting with each other, forming these complex networks,
Okay.
pathways that regulate pretty much everything in our bodies.
And
And these interactions, they can be transient, like a quick handshake, or they can be super long-lasting. They can form stable complexes.
So it's more like a bustling city of protein robots all working together.
That's a great analogy. And these interactions are crucial for everything from like cell signaling and immune responses to cell division and even breaking down nutrients.
Wow. It's crazy to think about the scale and complexity of these interactions. It's like there's this whole hidden network controlling the essence of life. The source mentions something called the interactome. What is that?
So the interactome is basically the complete map of all the protein interactions
Oh, wow.
that can happen within a cell or even an organism.
Okay.
It's like the ultimate social network for proteins. It shows who interacts with who and under what conditions.
So it's like having a wiring diagram
Right.
for all the cellular machinery.
Exactly.
Mapping that out seems like a monumental task.
It is a huge challenge.
Yeah.
But it's so important for understanding how cells function as a whole.
Mm.
By mapping the interactome, we can start to see how individual proteins contribute to the overall health and function of an organism.
It sounds like we're talking about a whole new level of like biological understanding. We're going from looking at like the individual parts to understanding how they all work together.
Exactly. It's a paradigm shift in how we think about biology. And it's all thanks to the incredible advances in protein research.
This deep dive into proteins has been incredible. We've gone from basic building blocks to intricate structures, complex networks, and all this cutting-edge scientific discovery, but there's still so much more to explore.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We've only just scratched the surface.
Well, on that note, let's delve even deeper into this microscopic world and see what other wonders we can uncover. We've been on quite a journey exploring these tiny molecular machines.
It really is amazing.
They're essential for life itself.
Absolutely.
We've talked about how they're built,
Uh-huh.
how they fold into these intricate 3D structures,
Mm.
and how they carry out just this mind-boggling array of functions
Incredible.
within our bodies.
It really is how much complexity there is.
Packed into something so tiny.
Yeah, and we're just,
Start to learn.
we're just starting, yeah.
But one thing that really struck me was this idea of the protein folding problem.
Oh, yeah.
It's fascinating that scientists are still working on
Yeah.
trying to fully understand
Trying to
and
crack the code?
how a protein knows how to fold into that correct shape.
Yeah, that's right.
Based only on its amino acid sequence.
That's a challenge. It really is.
It's like a cosmic Sudoku puzzle.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So it's one of the biggest challenges in biochemistry.
It is.
But if we can crack the code of protein folding,
Oh, yeah, if we could.
it would have huge implications for
Oh,
everything.
yeah, it would revolutionize so many things.
From developing new drugs to
Drug development, for sure.
designing new materials.
Yeah, materials with,
With unique properties.
new properties that we haven't even thought of yet.
It's exciting,
It is exciting.
but also a bit daunting
It is. It's powerful technology.
to think about
There are, potential risks too, of course.
the possibilities.
But the possibilities are, just imagine
Yeah.
designing proteins that can,
Yeah.
break down pollutants in the environment.
That would be amazing.
Or creating new biomaterials
Right.
with incredible strength, flexibility.
Yeah. Things we can't even imagine.
Yeah. Who knows? The possibilities are really endless.
It's like we're entering
It's a whole new frontier.
a whole new frontier of science
Exactly.
where we can kind of
Harness the power of nature.
harness the power of nature
Yeah, these tiny robots.
to solve these
some of the world's biggest challenges.
the world's biggest challenges. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And speaking of challenges,
Right.
you mentioned earlier that a lot of diseases
Uh-huh.
are linked to problems
Yeah, that's right.
with protein folding
Yeah.
or function.
They are.
Can you talk a bit more about that?
So when proteins misfold or malfunction,
Right.
it can disrupt these cellular processes
Wow.
and lead to all sorts of diseases.
Yeah.
Alzheimer's disease, for example.
Oh, wow.
That's associated with the buildup
Okay.
of these misfolded proteins in the brain
And lots of cancers
and many cancers.
are caused by mutations
Yeah,
in genes that code for proteins
right.
that are involved in
In cell growth and regulation.
cell growth and regulation. Okay.
Exactly.
So if we can understand how proteins work
If we can, yeah.
and what happens when they go wrong,
And what goes wrong, yeah.
then we could potentially develop new ways
New
to
therapies.
fix them
Yeah, new ways to fix them.
or even prevent these diseases
Prevent them.
from happening in the first place.
Exactly.
It's like having a repair manual
It is. It's like
for our own bodies.
it's like having the repair manual.
wow.
And as we learn more,
As we keep going deeper
into the world of proteins, yeah,
into the world of proteins,
we're getting closer and closer
we get closer
to developing those therapies
those new therapies. That's amazing.
that can really target those problems
Yeah.
at their root.
This has been an incredible deep dive.
It has been fun.
I feel like it's been my
I
pleasure.
have a whole new appreciation
I'm glad.
for these tiny machines
They're amazing.
that are working so hard
They really are.
to keep us alive.
All the time
Yeah,
and functioning.
it's incredible.
I've learned so much
I'm glad to hear that.
about these molecular machines.
Me too.
And I encourage all of you listening
Yeah, everyone listening.
to explore the protein data bank
It's a great resource.
and see the amazing structures
Those structures are beautiful.
of these molecular machines.
Yeah, they really are.
It's a journey
It is a journey.
that will leave you
It will leave you.
with a sense of awe and wonder
A sense of awe and wonder, for sure.
about the intricate workings of life itself.
Exactly.
Thanks for joining us
It's been fun.
on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.